Have you ever asked yourself how long it would take for your money to actually double? Not just to grow a little, not just to slowly creep upward in a savings account, but to really double in size. Imagine having $1,000 today and then waking up one day years later and seeing $2,000 sitting there instead. Now think even bigger. Imagine your $10,000 becoming $20,000, your $100,000 becoming $200,000. The question is, how do you know how long that really takes? And is there a quick, almost magical way to find out without using a calculator, a spreadsheet, or a degree in finance? What I'm about to share with you is a shortcut so simple that once you hear it, you'll never forget it. It's called the Rule of 72, and it has been around for centuries. Bankers, merchants, and investors have been using it long before we had smartphones or even pocket calculators. It's one of those timeless mental tricks that feels almost like cheating because it's so fast, so easy, and so revealing. But before we dive into what it is and how to use it, you need to understand something more important. You need to understand why doubling your money matters in the first place and how it's possible to speed that process up. So take a guess in the comments on how much time you think it will take, and let's start. Here's the truth. Most people save money for decades and still end up disappointed. They follow the rules, they set aside cash, they let it sit in a so-called safe account, and they assume that with enough time it will take care of them. But then inflation quietly eats away at everything. Prices creep upward, groceries that used to cost $50 now cost $100, and the so-called safe money ends up buying less even though the number on the bank screen is bigger. In reality, the growth wasn't real growth. It was an illusion. And that illusion is why so many people reach retirement age with far less than they expected. That's why learning the Rule of 72 isn't just about being clever with math. It's about protecting yourself from a trap. It's about seeing the truth quickly, in seconds, and making better decisions before it's too late. So how fast can you really double your money? That's where the Rule of 72 comes in. The formula is simple. Take the number 72 and divide it by your annual return. The answer tells you how many years it will take for your money to double. But don't worry, I'm not just going to throw numbers at you. I'm going to walk you through 8 powerful things you need to know about this rule. And each one will open your eyes a little wider, especially after the 7th thing, which can literally cut the time in half. Let's start with the first thing, the difference between nominal growth and real growth. This is the foundation. Nominal growth is what your account balance shows on the screen. Real growth is what your money can actually buy after inflation is considered. If you keep $1,000 in a bank account earning 1% interest, the Rule of 72 says it will double in about 72 years. Think about that. An entire lifetime just to turn $1,000 into $2,000. And in 72 years, what do you think $2,000 will buy? Almost nothing. A century ago, $2,000 could buy you a car, maybe even a house in some places. Today, it might buy you a few months of rent in a small apartment. 72 years from now, it might only cover a few weeks of groceries. That's why understanding real growth is essential. If inflation is running at 3% and your savings are only earning 1%, you're actually falling behind by 2% every single year. The number in your account is climbing, but the real value is shrinking. Imagine walking up an escalator that's moving down. You're lifting your legs, you're sweating, you're putting in effort, but you're not really going anywhere. That's what happens when your growth rate doesn't outpace inflation. So the first thing the Rule of 72 does is show you the illusion. It makes it clear in seconds whether you're walking up or down the escalator. If your doubling time is longer than your expected lifetime, or if inflation cancels it out, then you're not doubling at all. You're just standing still while prices race ahead. But imagine for a moment, if you could also triple your money, wouldn't that be fantastic? Second thing, why small changes in returns change everything. Here's where the rule really shows its power. Imagine 2 different accounts. One pays 3%, the other pays 6%. At first glance, 6% doesn't look that much bigger than 3%. It's just double, right? But the Rule of 72 makes the impact clear. At 3%, it takes 24 years for your money to double. At 6%, it only takes 12 years. That's half the time. And if you have 36 years until retirement, that means in the 3% account, your money doubles 1.5 times. In the 6% account, it doubles 3 times. Let's put real numbers on it. Start with $10,000. At 3% in 36 years, you'll end up with about $20,000, maybe $22,000. At 6%, you'll end up with around $80,000. Same timeline, same starting point, but 4 times the ending value. That's the difference between a modest nest egg and financial independence. This is why investors obsess over small differences in return rates. 1% more per year might sound tiny, but the rule of 72 shows it can shave years off your doubling time and multiply your results dramatically. Think of it like running. If you jog at 3 miles per hour, it'll take you 24 minutes to run a mile. If you speed up to 6 miles per hour, you cut that time to 10 minutes. Same body, same distance, but half the time. Over many miles, the gap becomes enormous. Money works the same way. The faster you move, even slightly faster, the more distance you cover. We will go deeper about this topic in the 5th thing. 3rd thing, the invisible advantage of time. This is one of the most underestimated forces in finance. People assume that the more money you put in, the more you get out. But the truth is, starting earlier with smaller amounts can beat starting later with larger ones. The rule of 72 explains why. Take 2 people, Alex and Veronica. Alex starts investing at age 25 with $300 a month, earning 10% annually. Veronica waits until 35, then invests $500 a month at the same 10%. Who ends up with more? Most people guess Veronica because 500 is more than 300. But the rule of 72 tells the real story. At 10%, money doubles every 7.2 years. Alex has more doubling cycles. By the time Veronica even starts, Alex's money has already doubled once. By the end, Alex ends up with about $600,000, while Veronica finishes with around $350,000. That extra decade gave Alex nearly double the result, even though he invested less money each month. Time is a multiplier that cannot be bought later. If you're young and listening right now, this is your wake-up call. Don't wait. Don't tell yourself you'll invest when you make more money. The small contributions you make now will grow into something massive because they have more doubling cycles ahead of them. Waiting costs far more than it seems. Think of it like planting trees. Planting one today gives it decades to grow, to put down roots, to spread its branches. Planting the same tree 10 years later means it will always be smaller, no matter how much you water it. Time is the soil, and compounding is the sunlight. Together they create growth that's impossible to catch up to if you start too late. 4th thing, the power of multiple doublings. This is where compounding becomes explosive. The rule of 72 doesn't just tell you when your money doubles once. It helps you see how many doublings you can fit into your lifetime. Each doubling multiplies your money by 2. 2 doublings means 4 times your money. 3 doublings means 8 times. 4 doublings means 16 times. 5 doublings means 32 times. Let's say you invest $10,000 at age 20 and you get a 10% annual return. Using the rule of 72, that means a doubling every 7.2 years. By age 65, you've had about 6 doubling cycles. 10,000 becomes 20,000, then 40, then 80, then 160, then 320, and finally 640,000. One small seed grows into a forest. Now imagine the opposite. You wait until you're 40 to start. That cuts out almost 3 doubling cycles. Instead of 640,000, you finish with only 80,000. Same return, same contribution, but fewer doublings. That's the difference between struggling to retire and living with abundance. This is why the rule of 72 is more than a neat trick. It's a time machine. It lets you see how many chances your money has to multiply and whether you're giving it enough room to run. Missing even one doubling cycle can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Missing 2 or 3 can cost you millions.